I still remember the day we made our greatest mistake. My name is Vorath, and I served as intelligence commander for the Krell Dominion fleet, 2nd Division, Outer Rim Operations. 23 cycles of flawless service, 47 successful campaigns, not a single tactical error on my record, until we captured Marcus Webb. It started like any other reconnaissance mission. Our scout ships had been monitoring a remote human mining operation on Kepler 926, a worthless rock at the edge of what the humans called their frontier territory. Nothing special, just another primitive species scraping minerals from dead planets, completely unaware that the universe was far more dangerous than their simple minds could comprehend. Commander Zelix, may his atoms scatter eternally, decided it would be amusing to take a prisoner. One human, he said, his mandibles clicking with what I now recognize as terminal stupidity. Just one. What could possibly happen? I should have objected. I should have reminded him of Protocol 7, which explicitly stated that engaging with unknown species required full diplomatic assessment first. But Zelix had political connections, and I had a career to protect. So I stayed silent. Hold that silence cost 60 billion Krell lives. The human we took was nobody special, or so we thought. Marcus Webb, age 32, mining engineer, no military background. He had been conducting surface surveys when our containment team swept through the facility. The other humans died quickly, cleanly, standard procedure. But Webb, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Our scanners detected him hiding in a collapsed tunnel, and Zelix wanted a specimen. Bring him alive, Zelix ordered. Let's see what these pink creatures are made of. The extraction took 4 hours. Webb fought. I'll give him that. Collapsed half the tunnel trying to escape. Injured 2 of our soldiers with nothing but a mining laser and what I can only describe as absolutely unhinged determination. When we finally dragged him into the holding bay, he was bleeding from multiple wounds, his breathing apparatus cracked, and yet he was still trying to bite through his restraints. Feisty little thing, Zelix observed, tapping on the containment field. I like it. Webb stared at us with these eyes. Humans have remarkable eyes, did you know that? They can convey so much emotion. Fear. Yes, but also rage. Pure, distilled, terrifying rage. You're going to regret this, Webb said through his broken breathing mask. His voice came out distorted, mechanical, but clear enough. You have no idea what you just started. Zelix laughed. Actually laughed. Threats? From you? Small creature, your entire species hasn't even achieved faster than light travel without stealing alien technology. Your children playing with toys you don't understand. What could you possibly do to the Krell Dominion? Webb smiled then, blood on his teeth. Guess we're both about to find out. We jumped to hyperspace 6 hours later. Webb secured in detention cell 9, Kepler 926 reduced to slag behind us. Standard operational cleanup. No witnesses, no evidence. The Krell way. The first indication that something was wrong came 14 hours into our return voyage. Lieutenant Crix was monitoring long-range communications when she detected an unusual spike in quantum transmission activity. Human space was lit up. Every major colony, every military installation, every civilian station was broadcasting on emergency channels. Commander, Crix called out, her voice tight, I'm detecting massive fleet movements. The humans are mobilizing. All of them? I asked, moving to her station. All of them, she confirmed. Every ship capable of carrying weapons is being recalled to active duty. They're pulling vessels from cargo runs, from passenger services, from mining operations. Sir, I'm reading activation codes for what appears to be their entire reserve fleet. Zelix wasn't concerned. Let them scramble. By the time they figure out what happened, we'll be 3 sectors away. All the humans don't even know which direction we jumped. But I was looking at the data, really looking at it, and something cold was forming in my primary stomach. Commander, this isn't exploratory mobilization. This is a war footing, full scale. They're not searching for us. They're preparing for something else. They're preparing for something else. Preparing for what? Zelix demanded. I didn't have an answer. Not then. The answer came 6 hours later, when we dropped out of hyperspace at Waystation Krell 7 for refueling. The station was in panic mode. Ships were evacuating. Station command was broadcasting evacuation orders on all frequencies. What in the void is happening? Zelix demanded as we docked. Station Commander Praxis met us at the airlock, all four of his arms gesturing frantically. You need to leave. Now. The humans are coming. The humans? Zelix repeated, incredulous. The humans don't even know where we are. We took one of their miners from an uncharted outpost. How could they possibly? They know, Praxis interrupted, his voice rising to a screech. They know exactly where you are. They've been broadcasting your ship's quantum signature across every frequency. They're offering a bounty of 10 million credits to any species that provides your location. They've declared war on the Krell Dominion. War. Over one miner. The detention level alarm started blaring. I ran. Zelix ran. We both knew what that alarm meant. Webb was standing in the center of his cell, calm as still water, while the containment field sparked and failed around him. He wasn't trying to escape. He was just standing there, waiting. What did you do? I demanded. Webb looked at me with those terrible human eyes. Me? Nothing. I'm just a miner. Remember? Nobody special. He tilted his head slightly. But I'm also a citizen of Earth, and Earth doesn't negotiate with kidnappers. Earth doesn't forgive. Earth doesn't forgive. Earth doesn't forget. Earth doesn't forget. It's one person, Zelix screamed. One insignificant life. This is insanity. Yeah, Webb agreed quietly. It is insane. That's what you don't understand about us. We're all insane. Every single one of us. We're the species that looked at a world full of predators and decided we were the apex. We're the species that split the atom just to see what would happen. We're the species that strapped ourselves to controlled explosions and called it space travel. We're survivors of 10,000 generations of war, famine, plague, and disaster, and every single time we chose to keep going. We chose rage, we chose spite, we chose each other. He stepped closer to the failing containment field. And you took one of us. The field collapsed completely. So now, Webb continued, his voice never rising above conversational tone. You get to learn what happens when you hurt one human. You get to learn what 700 billion humans look like when they decide, collectively, that you need to die. Long-range sensors screamed. I pulled up the display and felt my second heart stop. Ships, hundreds of ships, thousands of ships, more ships than I had ever seen in one place in my entire military career. Human ships, yes, but also ships from the Terran Alliance, the Mars Confederation, the Outer Colonies Collective, the Luna Sovereignty, every human government, putting aside whatever petty territorial disputes they had, uniting under one simple banner. Bring Marcus Webb home. That's impossible, Zelix whispered. That's our entire sector fleet out there. They can't have mobilized that many vessels in less than a day. It's strategically impossible. The logistics alone. You're thinking like a rational species, Webb said. Humans aren't rational. We're efficient. There's a difference. When you threaten one of us, we don't debate. We don't hold committee meetings. We don't check with legal departments. We just move. Every ship, every weapon. We just move. Every ship, every weapon. Every person who can hold a gun or pilot a fighter or operate a communications array. We move. The lead ship was broadcasting. A woman's voice, cold and precise. Krell vessel, this is Admiral Victoria Kane of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are harboring Marcus Webb, a citizen of Earth and protected person under Terran law. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, we will destroy you. If you resist, we will destroy you. If you harm Marcus Webb in any way, we will destroy you. Everyone you ever knew, everyone they ever knew, and every planet you ever called home. This is not a negotiation. This is a courtesy announcement. Clock starts now. Zelix looked at me. I looked at Zelix. What do we do? He asked. Before I could answer, Webb spoke again. You surrender? He said simply. You surrender right now. You hand me over. And maybe humanity stops at destroying just your military fleet. You fight, and I promise you, there won't be a Krell left alive in this galaxy by the time we're done. We've done worse for less. You're bluffing, Zelix said, but his voice shook. Webb smiled again.
That same bloody smile.
Am I? Tell me, Commander, in your entire military history, has any species ever cared more about retrieving one single person than about preserving their strategic position? Has any rational species ever committed full-scale war over one captured soldier? Silence. That's what I thought, Webb continued. You're thinking like military commanders, like rational beings who understand acceptable losses and strategic calculations. But humans, we don't think like that. We think like this. They took one of ours, and that means they all die. Every single one. It's not strategy. It's not even really revenge. It's principle. It's identity. It's the fundamental truth that makes us human. Nobody gets left behind. Ever. 20 seconds had elapsed. Power down the weapons, I ordered. What? Zelix spun on me. You can't. I'm not dying for your ego, I snapped. Look at the scans. That's not a rescue fleet. That's an extermination force. They brought enough firepower to glass 10 planets. For one miner. Power down the weapons now or I'm ejecting you out the airlock and doing it myself. Zelix stared at the view screen. At the massive fleet bearing down on us. At the weapons charging. At the fighter wings deploying. At the absolutely unhinged level of military force being directed at our single ship. He powered down the weapons. The boarding was swift and professional. Human Marines, 40 of them, in full combat armor, secured the ship in less than 4 minutes. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Precise, efficient, utterly merciless to anyone who even looked like they might resist. 2 Marines escorted Webb to their shuttle. One of them, a woman with sergeant stripes, handed him a water bottle and a medical kit. You okay, Webb? She asked. Been better, he admitted. Thanks for coming. Always, she replied. Then she looked at me. Really looked at me. You're lucky you surrendered. The Admiral wanted to make an example. Show the galaxy what happens when you screw with Earth. She still might. Another Marine added cheerfully. Vote's still out on whether we blow up your home world or just your fleet. I felt my digestive tract spasm. Admiral Kane herself came aboard, all gray hair, eyes like frozen nitrogen. She walked up to Zelix and stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment. I'm going to explain something to you, she said quietly. And then you're going to go home and explain it to your government. Were you listening? Zelix nodded mutely. Humanity has a very simple rule, Kane continued. You can trade with us. You can negotiate with us. You can even fight with us in declared wars with rules and boundaries, but you do not ever under any circumstances take a human prisoner and think there won't be consequences, because we will find you. We will track you across galaxies if we have to, and we will bring so much violence down on your head that your species will tell stories about it for the next 1,000 generations. Do you understand? Yes, Zelix managed. Kane turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. We're keeping your ship, and your station, and every Krell vessel in this sector. Call it reparations. Try to take them back and we'll consider it an act of war. And trust me, you really don't want to see what human war looks like when we're not showing restraint. She left. The Marines left. Webb left. Webb left. And I stood there, in the wreckage of my career, my ship and my species' military credibility, trying to understand what had just happened. We hadn't captured a prisoner. We'd pulled the pin on a grenade, and wondered why it exploded. We'd pulled the pin on a grenade and wondered why it exploded. The aftermath was worse than the encounter. The Krell High Command tried to save face. They issued statements about proportional response and civilized conduct, and how humanity's reaction was proof of their barbaric nature. The galaxy's response was universal laughter, because every other species understood what the Krell had failed to grasp. Humanity had just broadcast to the entire known galaxy that they would burn down civilizations for a single citizen. They'd proven they had the industrial capacity to mobilize overwhelming force in hours. They'd demonstrated that they viewed individual lives as more valuable than strategic positioning. In short, they'd proven they were completely, utterly, absolutely insane. And in a galaxy full of cold, calculating species who understood acceptable losses and strategic retreat, that insanity made them the most terrifying military force in known space. 3 cycles later, the Krell Dominion formally apologized to Earth and paid reparations. Zelix was executed for his incompetence. I was demoted and reassigned to a monitoring station in the outer dark, where I couldn't embarrass anyone important. And Marcus Webb? He went back to his mining job. Just another citizen. Just another human. Just another reason why, these days when my species encounters a human ship, we go the other direction as fast as our drives can push us. Because we learned a very simple lesson that day. You don't take human prisoners. You don't threaten their civilians. You don't assume that because they're alone, they're unprotected. Because humanity doesn't abandon its own. Not ever. Not for anything. And if you make them prove it, well, the survivors get to tell the story. The real horror began 3 months after we returned Marcus Webb. I was stationed at Monitoring Outpost 71, a miserable assignment at the edge of Krell space where nothing ever happened, and nobody important ever visited. Perfect exile for a disgraced commander. My days consisted of watching empty space, filing reports nobody read, and trying not to think about how spectacularly my career had imploded. Then the reports started coming in. First, it was just rumors, whispers on the civilian networks. The Krell mining colony at Sector 47 had gone dark. Communications cut off mid-transmission. When the relief fleet arrived 3 days later, the colony was intact but completely abandoned. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty buildings and a single message sprayed across the main habitat dome in what analysis confirmed was human paint. Remember Webb? The High Command dismissed it as vandalism. Probably some human extremist group, making a point. Nothing to worry about. Then it happened again. Ul's Krell research station at Beta Hadri. Same pattern. Everything intact. Everyone gone. Same message. Remember Webb? Then again. And again. And again. 7 installations in 2 weeks. All Krell, all abandoned, all marked with the same message. The High Command stopped dismissing it as vandalism. I received new orders. Report to Krell Prime immediately for emergency strategic briefing. When I arrived at the homeworld, the capital was in controlled chaos. Military convoys moving through the streets. Air patrols overhead. The kind of security response you see when a government is genuinely frightened. The briefing room held every senior military official still alive and not implicated in the Webb incident. Fleet Admiral Torvin presided, his carapace showing stress fractures from tension. "Gentlemen," he began without preamble.
"We have a situation."
"In the past month we've lost contact with 32 installations, 14 colonies, 11 research stations, 7 military outposts. In every case the pattern is identical. No distress calls, no signs of combat, no bodies, just empty facilities and that same message." He activated the holographic display. Dozens of red markers scattered across Krell space. "We initially believed this was a human black operations campaign, retaliation for the Webb incident, but our intelligence indicates something far worse. The humans aren't taking our people, they're not killing them either. They're relocating them." Confused murmurs rippled through the room. "Relocating them where?" someone asked. "To trial," Torvin said grimly. "Every Krell citizen extracted from those installations is being transported to a facility the humans have constructed specifically for this purpose. They're calling it the Tribunal for Crimes Against Sapient Rights, and they're putting our people on trial for war crimes." The room exploded into shouting. "War crimes? We hadn't even been at war." Torvin slammed his primary claw on the table, demanding silence.
Halt.
"It gets worse. The humans have opened this tribunal to galactic observation.
Halt.
Any species can attend.
Halt.
Any species can submit evidence.
Halt.
The species can submit evidence, and they're methodically building cases against not just the individuals who participated in raids but against our entire governmental structure." "On what grounds?" I asked, finding my voice. "On the grounds," Torvin said slowly, "that for the past 200 cycles the Krell Dominion has been conducting unauthorized military operations against non-spacefaring species, abductions, forced labor, medical experiments, resource extraction without consent. According to human law, these actions constitute crimes against sapience, and they're applying their legal framework retroactively to every action we've taken since achieving faster-than-light capability." Silence. Complete, total silence. Because he was right. We had done all of those things. Every spacefaring species did. It was how you built an interstellar civilization. You took resources from primitive worlds. You studied lesser species. You did what was necessary for progress. The humans called it genocide. "They can't do this," someone protested weakly. "They have no authority. They have 700 billion citizens, the largest industrial base in known space, and a demonstrated willingness to mobilize their entire civilization over a single individual." Torvin interrupted. "What they lack in legal authority, they compensate for with the simple fact that nobody wants to fight them. 17 species have already recognized the tribunal's legitimacy. 12 more are considering it. The humans are offering full amnesty and protection to any Krell who testifies against the Dominion leadership." He paused, letting that sink in. "They're not trying to destroy us militarily. They're dismantling us legally. politically, and morally, and it's working. I felt cold. How many have testified? 4,000, Torvin admitted. So far, the number increases daily. They're offering citizenship, relocation, guaranteed employment. For many of our lower castes, it's a better life than anything the Dominion ever provided. So what do we do? I asked. Torvin looked directly at me.
You.
Specifically, Commander Vorath are going to Earth, as an official diplomatic envoy. You're going to meet with their government and negotiate terms for ending this tribunal before it completely destroys our civilization. Me? Why me? Because you were there, Torvin said bluntly. You witnessed the mobilization. You surrendered the ship. You survived contact with humanity at its most aggressive, and according to our psychological profiles, you're one of the few Krell officers who actually understands how fundamentally differently they think from us. If anyone can negotiate with them, it's you. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to resign my commission and disappear into the outer colonies and pretend none of this was happening. But I was Krell. We don't run. Even when we probably should. The trip to Earth took 6 days. I traveled alone on a small diplomatic courier, broadcasting neutral status on all frequencies. Human patrol ships shadowed me the entire way, never threatening, never communicating, just watching, letting me know they could destroy me anytime they wanted. Earth was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. I'd seen planets before, thousands of them, but Earth was different. It was alive in a way most worlds weren't. Oceans that covered 70% of the surface, atmosphere thick with oxygen and nitrogen, cities that glowed at night like bioluminescent organisms, and ships.
Wow, so many ships!
The orbital space around Earth looked like a migrating swarm. Thousands of vessels coming and going, a constant flow of commerce and military traffic that made my primary brain ache trying to track it all. They docked me at Luna Station, humanity's oldest orbital facility, built before they even had artificial gravity, according to the historical plaques. Now it served as their primary diplomatic hub, a neutral ground where alien species could meet with human officials without setting foot on the homeworld. My escort was a young human named Daniel Park, Diplomatic Corps, 3rd year. He was unfailingly polite, professional, and utterly unreadable. Ambassador Kane will see you shortly, he informed me. Can I get you anything? Water? Nutrient supplements? We have facilities for most major species. Information, I said. Why are you doing this? The tribunal? The extractions? All of it. You got Webb back. You made your point. Why continue? Park smiled.
It wasn't a happy smile.
Because we pulled the thread and didn't like what we found underneath. When we started investigating what happened to Marcus Webb, we accessed your databases. All of them. Every military report, every intelligence assessment, every resource survey, and we discovered that the Webb incident wasn't an isolated event. It was standard operating procedure. You've been doing this for 2 centuries. Every species does this, I protested. Resource extraction from primitive worlds is standard practice across the galaxy. You can't possibly hold us to a different standard than— Yes, we can, Park interrupted, his smile vanishing. Because unlike every other species, we actually remember what it was like to be primitive. We remember what it felt like when more advanced civilizations showed up and decided our resources were more valuable than our lives. We remember colonization. We remember exploitation. We remember being treated as less than sapient by people who thought they were better than us. And we decided collectively that we would never let that happen to anyone else. Not while we have the power to stop it. He leaned forward slightly. You took one of ours, Commander, and in the process of getting him back we realized you'd been taking from others for a very long time. So now we're stopping you. Permanently. Ambassador Kane's office overlooked Earth. The entire wall was transparent, providing an unobstructed view of the blue-green planet rotating slowly below. She was standing at that window when I entered, hands clasped behind her back, gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Commander Vorath, she said without turning. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I asked. No, she admitted, but I appreciate you coming anyway. It shows a willingness to engage. She turned to face me. Up close, she was older than I'd realized, all lines around her eyes, weathering on her skin. A human who'd seen things and survived them. You want us to stop the tribunal? Kane said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Why should we? Because you're tearing apart an interstellar civilization over incidents that happened decades ago. Because you're applying your legal standards to actions taken before we even knew your species existed. Because what you're doing sets a dangerous precedent that could destabilize the entire galactic community. Kane nodded slowly. Those are good arguments. Rational arguments. Arguments I would have made myself a year ago. Unfortunately, Commander, I'm no longer interested in rational arguments. She gestured to a chair. I sat. She remained standing. Let me tell you a story. Kane began. 3 months ago, we extracted a Krell outpost at Delta Eridani, 47 personnel. We were expecting standard military types. What we found instead were scientists, biologists, medical researchers. They'd been studying a pre-spacefaring species on the 4th planet, harmless herbivores, about as threatening as Earth rabbits. The Krell were infecting them with modified viruses to study immune system responses. Her voice remained perfectly level, perfectly calm. 80 million of them died. 80 million sapient beings wiped out by a plague they had no defense against. Also, your scientists could publish research papers on comparative immunology. And when we asked the lead researcher why, he said it was standard procedure. Nobody important, just animals, really. No different than laboratory testing on any other species. Kane's eyes locked onto mine. So I stopped being rational, Commander, because rationality is what got 80 million sapients killed for a research paper. Rationality is what let your Dominion commit atrocities for 200 years and call it progress. Rationality is a luxury afforded to species who've never been on the receiving end of someone else's rational self-interest. What do you want? I asked quietly. Accountability, Kane said simply. Every official who authorized military action against non-spacefaring species, every commander who carried out those orders, every scientist who experimented on unwilling subjects, every bureaucrat who filed the paperwork and pretended not to see what was happening, all of them standing trial, all of them facing the species they harmed, all of them held accountable for what they did. That's half our government. Yes, Kane agreed. It is, which tells you everything you need to know about your government. And if we refuse? Kane smiled. That same cold smile I'd seen on Marcus Webb's face. Then we continue extractions. We continue building cases. We continue offering asylum to anyone who wants to leave. And eventually the Krell Dominion collapses under the weight of its own crimes, and something better rises from the ashes. It'll take longer, and it'll be messier. But the outcome will be the same. Your choice is whether you participate in your own reformation, or whether we do it for you. I felt something break inside me, some last vestige of pride or patriotism or belief in the system I'd served for 23 cycles. What would you have me do? I asked. Testify, Kane said. Tell the truth about what happened with Marcus Webb. Tell the truth about every other operation you participated in or witnessed. Help us understand the scope of what the Dominion did, and then help us make sure it never happens again. I'll be executed for treason. No, Kane corrected. You'll be granted asylum and protected status. You'll live. You'll have a chance to be part of something better. That's more than the Dominion is offering right now. I thought about Zelix, executed for his incompetence. I thought about the empty colonies, the abandoned stations. I thought about 80 million dead herbivores in research papers nobody would ever read. I thought about Marcus Webb standing in his broken containment field, explaining that humans chose each other. When do we start? I asked. The tribunal lasted 2 years. I testified for 6 months of that. Others testified longer. Some testimonies were brief. Some lasted weeks. The humans recorded everything, documented everything, verified everything through multiple independent sources. They were building a historical record, not just of what the Krell had done, but of what happens when civilizations prioritize expansion over ethics, when they value progress over sapience, when they decide that some lives matter less than others. Species came from across the galaxy to watch. Some came out of curiosity. Some came to gloat. Some came because they recognized themselves in our crimes and wanted to understand how to be better. The humans welcomed them all. In the end, 4,700 Krell officials were convicted of crimes against sapience. 3,200 accepted punishment through the tribunal's rehabilitation programs. 1,500 chose execution rather than reformation. The Dominion collapsed, restructured, emerged as something smaller and humbler and infinitely more careful. And Marcus Webb? I met him again, actually, at the tribunal's closing ceremony. He was there representing the miners' union, which had pushed for protective legislation for frontier workers. Commander Vorath, he said, offering his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Heard you've been keeping busy. I took his hand carefully. Human hands are fragile, trying to undo 2 centuries of damage. It's slow work. Best kind of work there is. Webb said. Slow means you're being careful. Careful means you're doing it right. Do you ever regret it? I asked. The war you started? The civilization you dismantled? Webb considered that for a moment. I didn't start anything. I was just a guy trying to do his job who got grabbed by people who thought I didn't matter. What happened after? That wasn't about me. That was about humanity looking at itself in the mirror and deciding what kind of species we wanted to be. Turns out, we want to be the kind that protects people, all people, even the ones who aren't human. He smiled. Even cranky Krell commanders with guilty consciences. I don't have a... Yeah, you do, Webb interrupted gently. That's good. Means you're learning. Guilt means you understand what was wrong. Understanding what was wrong means you can help make it right. That's all any of us can do. He clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture of friendship I was still getting used to, and walked away to rejoin his colleagues. I stood there, in the gallery of a tribunal built to hold my species accountable, surrounded by representatives from 100 worlds, watching humans laugh and argue and exist in all their chaotic, impossible, absolutely insane glory. Long stood there, in the gallery of a tribunal built to hold my species accountable, surrounded by representatives from 100 worlds watching humans laugh and argue and exist in all their chaotic, impossible, absolutely insane glory. And I understood, finally, what made them terrifying. It wasn't their weapons. It wasn't their industrial capacity. It wasn't even their willingness to mobilize overwhelming force for a single citizen. It was their belief that every sapient life had value, that every person mattered, that nobody got left behind, nobody got forgotten, nobody got dismissed as acceptable losses. It was their fundamental, unshakable conviction that the universe could be better, should be better, and that they were willing to burn down empires to make it so. They didn't respond with total annihilation because they were cruel. They responded with total annihilation because they cared. And in a cold, calculating galaxy full of species who understood acceptable losses and strategic retreat, that caring made them the most dangerous force in existence. Because you can negotiate with cruelty. You can reason with self-interest. You can predict and counter logical, strategic thinking. But how do you fight someone who looks at injustice and simply refuses to accept it?
How do you negotiate with a species that values principles over pragmatism?
How do you defeat people who would rather die fighting than live with the knowledge that they abandoned someone in need? You don't. You learn. You change. You become better. Or you cease to exist. The galaxy chose learning. It was the only rational choice, really, when faced with a species as beautifully, terrifyingly, completely irrational as humanity. I still work with the reformed Krell government. We're smaller now, more careful. We ask permission before we survey planets. We establish diplomatic contact before we extract resources. We treat pre-spacefaring species as sapients worthy of protection rather than resources waiting to be exploited. It's slower. It's harder. It's infinitely more complicated. It's also right. And on the rare occasions when I doubt that, when I wonder if maybe we were better off before, when I think about how much simpler things were when we just took what we wanted and didn't worry about consequences, I remember Marcus Webb, standing in his broken containment field, covered in blood and defiance, explaining that humanity chose each other. And I remember the fleet that came for him. Thousands of ships, hundreds of billions of lives. An entire civilization mobilizing in hours because one of their own was in danger. I remember total annihilation deployed not as conquest, not as expansion, not as resource acquisition, but as rescue. And I understand that humanity didn't just change the Krell Dominion. They changed the galaxy. One prisoner at a time.